Trump could pardon himself over Russia, but won't, says Giuliani. López Obrador has a 92% chance of winning elections, according to the latest poll. Facebook gave user data to 60 companies over the last 10 years. And the hit Netflix Luis Miguel TV series is taking Mexican clothing retail by storm. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm Elliot Bullman. Let's go to the information. Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor and current attorney for President Donald Trump, said on ABC's This Week that the president probably has the power to pardon himself. The New York Times reported on Saturday that Trump's legal team believes that Trump, under the Constitution, can exercise his power to pardon in the Russia investigation in a letter written to special counsel Robert Mueller in January. But Giuliani also added that pardoning himself could have serious political consequences for Trump. A special counsel is investigating Russia's role in the 2016 election and whether Mr. Trump obstructed justice. The question of self-pardon arose after the New York Times published a letter to the counsel from Mr. Trump's lawyers. In it, they say he has absolute power as U.S. legal chief to end investigations or even exercise his power to pardon. Such absolute powers, they argue, mean that he could not have obstructed justice in any case. Former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara said on Sunday that if the president decided he was going to pardon himself, that's almost self-executing impeachment. Part of Mr. Mueller's investigation is looking at whether Mr. Trump sought to criminally obstruct it, in particular with the sacking of ex-National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former FBI Director James Comey, and with his reaction to Attorney General Jeff Sessions' recusal from the investigation. The debate over whether or not a president can pardon himself has never been resolved because no president has attempted such a thing. According to NPR, most legal experts don't believe that Trump can pardon himself because no one can be a judge in their own case. Moving on. Mexico's presidential candidates have entered the last straight of the 2018 election campaign, and 26 days before the official voting, Andrés Manuel López Obrador has a 92% chance of winning on July the 1st, according to the latest survey published by Spanish newspaper El País. With just 4 weeks to go before Mexicans head to the polling stations, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the candidate of the Juntos Haremos Historia coalition, has accumulated 48% of the voting intention, ahead of 28% for Ricardo Anaya and 20% of the PRI candidate José Antonio Meade, according to the newspaper. Not even two televised debates where the other candidates rounded on him have diminished his position in the polls. It's not normal that there's an electoral turnaround that would lose 20 points to the leading candidate, the newspaper said. The El País measurement is based on a model that converts probabilistic predictions after studying the historical accuracy of thousands of probes. In the case of Mexico, the model assumes an average error of 3.5 points per candidate, which is greater now because there are only a few weeks left until July the 1st. The margin of error is still around 15 points for a candidate with 40% of votes, according to the newspaper. Right now, a defeat by López Obrador would be rarer than seeing Cristiano Ronaldo miss a penalty. In other headlines, Apple, Amazon, Samsung, and Microsoft were all among the companies to have a data-sharing relationship with Facebook over the last 10 years, according to the New York Times. Without explicit consent, device makers were allowed to access data of users' friends even after Facebook said it would not share such information. A Facebook statement in response to the report denies that information belonging to friends of users was shared without permission. The data sharing was reportedly an issue as early as 2012. Sandy Paraquilas, who then led Facebook's privacy compliance, said that it's shocking that this practice may still continue 6 years later, and it appears to contradict Facebook's testimony to Congress that all friend permissions were disabled. The Times reported some device makers had access to user data such as relationship status, religion, political leaning, and events. It also found that data of users' friends could be accessed despite data sharing being turned off. On April 10th, Chief Executive Officer Mark Zuckerberg testified before a rare US Senate Joint Committee in response to the Cambridge Analytica scandal. A week earlier, it emerged that data firm Cambridge Analytica may have gotten access to the data of up to 87 million users, and most of Facebook's 2 billion users may have had their personal data skimmed by malicious actors. Beginning in 2014, Facebook began ending the access app developers had to users' friends' data, which included names, birthdays, and even political or religious leanings. But the Times report suggests major device makers were not restricted by the same policy. Amy Archibong, Facebook's vice president of product partnerships, responded to the Times article with a blog post titled, "Why We Disagree with the New York Times." However, he confirmed the use of the data sharing agreements with around 60 companies, including Amazon, Apple, BlackBerry, HTC, Microsoft, and Samsung. In other news, the extraordinary bio-series produced by Netflix that narrates the life and career of Luis Miguel has reached new markets. His popularity is such that entrepreneurs are cashing in on the show's success in the world of fashion, creating lines of t-shirts and merchandise such as cups or pins with the figure of the singer as well as some of the characters in the series, including his dad, Luis Rey. The 13-episode show, an authorized biography of the Mexican superstar Luis Miguel, is an unflinching tell-all that serves up a series of bombshells from the tangled past of the fiercely private singer known as El Sol de Mexico. With its high levels of audience, which have boomed in reproductions through platforms like Spotify, Luis Miguel fans all over Mexico are getting in on this new clothing craze. Ever since the launch of the first episode of the Luis Miguel series on Netflix, designer Roxana Ramos noticed the huge interest from Mexicans in the series, so she began to make some illustrations to print on t-shirts. Her first print run completely sold out, which bore the phrase of the singer's father, "I hate you, Luisito Rey." From the city of Tijuana, an outlet named Green Love created its own designs, alluding to the son of Mexico, Luis Miguel. The ingenuity of their products not only reflect the singer in shirts, but can also be found on cups and pins for clothes, which have the image of the singer and his famous phrase, "It will be that you does not love me." And finally, let's review the markets. The Mexican peso fell for the third straight session on Tuesday, hitting the weakest level against the US dollar since February 2017, as trade tensions between Mexico and the US escalated again after the Trump administration started imposing tariffs on steel and aluminium imports on Friday. Following the US decision, Mexico said it will file a WTO complaint and may apply a 20% tariff on US pork imports. The peso dropped 0.7% to 20.212 per dollar around 10:25 a.m. London time, the lowest since February 20th, 2017. On the other hand, the IPC Mexico increased 0.51% to 45,244 from 45,013 in the previous trading session. This was all for today. Thank you for your company. I'm Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.